Today's guest is Cole Ritter. Oh, wait, and you're attending Belmont right now, right? Is that correct?
I Yeah.
Okay,
Yep. I'm
perfect. So I want to make sure I got that part right.
hmm
Okay. Today's guest is Cole Ritter, a Nashville artist currently attending Belmont. Cole has been setting himself up to make waves in his local scene. Welcome, Cole.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Yeah, thanks for being here. So let's start you back to the beginning. Where were you born and raised, and how did music first come into your life?
Well, I was born in Gallatin, Tennessee, and my dad played guitar around the house ever since I was a little kid. The first things I remember hearing were early rock and roll and country music and some bluegrass along in there. So, yeah, I mean, music has been a part of my life since I was a really little kid, and I started playing violin when I was 3 years old.
Wow, that's amazing. Was it just your dad who was musical in your family?
No, his grandpa was actually a banjo teacher and a guitar teacher as well. So it started with him, but on my mom's side, my grandma also was a classically trained pianist, and my mom was a theater teacher. So the arts were always something that were really, really common and prevalent in our house, thankfully. So yeah, I mean, it really was there from the very beginning. It's been my whole life. I don't really remember not doing something musical.
Yeah, that's amazing. What kind of music were you listening to growing up? What was around you?
Um, Initially country, bluegrass, Americana. My dad was really into hard rock and rap as well. My mom was really into musical theater, and she really liked 80s hair metal and country. And my grandma was making me listen to a lot of classical music, which I did not like as much at the time, but I have grown to appreciate over the years.
Yeah, it seems like it's actually a common story with artists is like some people just don't like classical at first, especially the ones who grow up to do like pop and country and all that stuff. But later on, you
Yeah.
start to appreciate it. It's funny how that works. What kind of music first hit it off with you? Like made you really want to be a musician and all that?
Well, I think that there was an initial desire to want to play violin when I was a really little kid, but the very first music that I ever actually got excited about myself was actually folk music. That's the music that I was like, okay, maybe I want to actually start pursuing this. So I started listening to a lot of folk bands that were coming out of the early 2010s, like Mumford and Sons and the Lumineers and people like that. And then I just kind of started chasing the rabbit down the hole and started to get more into Americana. And through that, like I found all kinds of other genres that I had heard but had never really delved into and learned and tried to play, or just even listened to. So yeah, I mean, I just kind of started out, really enjoying folk music, and I was also very fortunate enough to get to take fiddle lessons from a man named Kenny Sears. And Kenny is he's one of the founding members of Nashville's the Time Jumpers, they're called. And Vince Gill played with them for a long time. And I mean, they have all kinds of crazy people come and sit in, but they're basically like a country and western swing band who was started by Nashville's A team at the time in the late 90s and early 2000s. And I was really fortunate to get to take with him. And he had played with a lot of the greats here in Nashville, and he really, really invested in me and got me excited about playing the fiddle in general.
Yeah, that's always so important to have a mentor like that. I'm sure it was a huge help to you. What else did you learn from him besides simply how to play the fiddle? Did he ever give you any advice that stuck with you or anything like that?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm still learning lessons from that man today, and I haven't been taking lessons from him since I was 11, so almost 10 years now. But I mean, Kenny was really, really, really big about, you know, um, you have to be a good hang, and you also have to just be a genuinely good person, um, to get along in the business. And the thing is like if you're you treat people poorly, people will find out about it. It's a even in Nashville, which is a big music scene, it's still small enough, so you have to treat people well and just like be the best person that you can be. And other than that, like you know, like it just be a good player, show up on time and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, Kenny was a great man, and definitely taught me a lot of life lessons that I'm still learning today.
Yeah, that's awesome. So did you ever pick up any other instruments, or it's always just been the fiddle and violin for you?
Well, I picked up the fiddle and violin, like I said, when I was 3, but when I was 13, I started to realize that there were young ladies around me, and Then I found out about Ed Sheeran, and I was like, wow, that guy, I bet he gets so many girls. So that's actually why I initially picked up the guitar, because I was a really weird kid and I felt like I didn't have a chance. So I started playing guitar, and the first song that I ever performed on guitar and sang was actually Lego House by Ed Sheeran, when I was like 13. And yeah, that's when I started that, and I just kept on with it. Finally got an electric when I was like 15, started playing lead, and I got into jazz when I was like 15 as well. So I was listening to a lot of that kind of stuff, and yeah, and then also I picked up mandolin, and I played banjo for a little while, and I play a lot of other instruments, but not as well as mandolin, banjo, and guitar. And I started singing when I was, just a kid, but I started actually wanting to pursue singing as something that I incorporated into my, repertoire musicianship when I was about 13, when I performed Lego House.
That's awesome. So where do you spend your time? Which instruments do you spend most of your time with right now? Is it mostly violin, guitar? What is it?
Uh, Lately here it's been guitars. I've been pursuing artistry more. However, we've been working on an album for the last 9 months, and I've actually recorded all the string parts on it as well, and played a lot of like the auxiliary instruments that are going to be on the album. So I mean, honestly, and I also just started teaching kids as well. So I'm teaching kids literally as young as 4 years old all the way up to like 80-year-olds. So, which is just, I'm stoked to do that. I'm about to start that this week actually. Um, but yeah, so I think, lately here, because I've been trying to get my chops back up on that, thankfully, I've really, really, really tried to be as well rounded as I possibly can be, and just really practice all my instruments. But yeah, I mean, for writing and such, I definitely spend most of my time on the guitar.
That's so cool. When did you first start writing your own music?
Well, I started writing poems when I was about 14, and they were really bad, like atrocious. Um, but I kept on with it. I kept on with it and started writing more, turning my poems into more ballads, kind of more folky ballad songs. And then, I really started to realize that like artistry was like a viable thing when I was, 17. And I thought about it and wasn't really sure. And then I went to college. Um, and I went back to just being a fiddle player, and I realized that I didn't really feel like I was completely in the right place. I know that I love music, but you know, I wanted to be able to make my own rules, and I wanted to be able to play the music that I wanted to play. So I started to make the music that I wanted to play. So I'd say that I really got serious about writing when I was about 18.
That's awesome. When did you first start recording that and, starting to get those ideas out there to other people?
Well, really, really recently, honestly, it's only been in like the last year and a half. About a year and a half ago, when I formed my current band, Cole Ritter and the Night Owls, we started recording videos for that band, just doing some of our original songs and doing some covers and stuff like that. And quite a few people seem to be getting pretty excited about it, and which I was really, really, really grateful for, and kind of surprised. And you just don't know the first time you ever put something out there that's kind of different and off the beaten path. People, it's kind of nerve wracking, but seems like people liked it for the most part. So we started really doing that then. And then right before the pandemic hit, we were actually going to go record our EP. It was going to be a 5-song EP. We were going to record that at RCA Studio B, which is where Elvis Presley recorded, and Eddie Arnold, and all the greats from back in the day. And COVID hit like right then. And so unfortunately we had to postpone making the record for another 6 months, where we did finally record it. And yeah, hopefully that'll be out here in like at least the first single will be out within like the next month or so. So it's actually been really recent that we've started to record our music.
That's awesome. That's so cool to hear. I'm excited to hear all that coming out.
Yeah,
Let's take it back for a second. So when you went to high school and all that, when did you decide to go to Belmont for college? Like, when did you decide to move to Nashville? And did you have a lot of experience in Nashville before then? Or was it kind of just a fresh new idea for you?
well, when I was looking for colleges, I knew for sure that I wanted to do music. I knew that I would drop out if I did anything else. I that's all that I've ever really wanted to do since I was about 13. But I mean, my seriousness about it definitely got stronger as I went through college. But as far as like actual colleges go, Nashville is about a 45-minute drive from where I grew up. So it was always close by. But, I'd never been like a tourist there, or I had never even like realized what a gold mine I was sitting on top of until, the last few years. And, I auditioned for Berkeley College of Music, and I made it in, got a good scholarship there. I auditioned to Middle Tennessee State University. I was thinking about pursuing like a jazz violin degree there. I was going to play in their big band. And then I was also thinking about going to East Tennessee State University, and I was going to study kind of like ethnomusicology about Appalachian folk music and stuff like that. So I'm definitely a history buff and a nerd about, just culture in general. But when I went to Berkeley, that was the one that I probably was the most serious about, besides Belmont. And they said every spring break they took a trip down to Nashville to see what the music industry was really like. And I was like, why would I move all the way up to Boston where there isn't as good of a music scene as there is here in Nashville, when I could just actually go to school in Nashville and just start getting myself involved in the music industry immediately. And my parents actually got married at Belmont. They got married at the mansion there, and it's a beautiful campus. And I mean, it is one of the best music schools in the world. Like I stand by that firmly. But I initially went into to go for a commercial violin, and I studied commercial violin there for about a year and a half. And then I just decided that music business was really going to be the path for me once I figured out like, hey, like I really actually want to be an artist. And I actually am still pursuing a music minor at Belmont, but definitely more on the music business side of things now.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great to hear perspective on like why you chose Belmont over Berkeley too. I know that's, for quite a few artists, that's one of the dilemmas is like which school, because I've heard they're both so great for music. But that makes sense. Just throw yourself into the fire of the industry, I guess, and kind of give yourself that experience. What are some of the greatest lessons you've learned from being at Belmont so far?
Oh man. Well, there's so many things to be gained from being in a college environment in general. Not even just Belmont, but I've done a lot of personal growth. I mean, you're moving from being like a literal child living in your parents' house to at this point, I'm trying to start taking on a lot more adult responsibilities. Like now I got to worry about rent, insurance, phone bills, the whole shebang. So, just learning how to actually, fend for yourself is a big part of college in general, but Belmont specifically. I realized that for most people, even who are going for music, it's a lot more about the piece of paper at the end of the day than it is about what they're actually learning in the college. And I think that's probably, if I had one critique of just like the college system in general, that would be it. I think that, what you're actually learning in college should be so much more valuable than just having a piece of paper at the end of the day. Um, that's something that I learned. Another thing that I really learned was, you know, use your time well. I've seen a lot of people go through Belmont and work really, really, really hard at being good players, but by the time they graduate, they have no connections in the industry. So, and that takes a while to build. You need a couple of years to get to that point. But the problem is you graduate and now like all the responsibilities are really yours. Now that you're out of the house, you're out of college, it's time for you to get a job. And the problem is if you don't have those connections, you're not going to initially be able to find a job necessarily. Maybe you'll get lucky, but most of the time not. So oftentimes I'll see those people have to get a job like being a barista or something like that. That's nothing to knock, but that's not why they came to Nashville. They came to Nashville to pursue being a musician. And I think it's just I think that actually and actively pursuing relationships in the music industry and trying to play gigs and just get to know people in town as soon as you get here is incredibly valuable. Because once you graduate college, the real world is going to hit you. And then you got to worry about, money and relationships, and you get a dog, and you really, 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 really need to be a good steward of the time that you have at Belmont for sure. And you can, I mean, don't get me wrong, their professors are absolutely phenomenal and they're top shelf for real. And you should be able to use those resources, but that can't be it. You need to go be pursuing internships and just getting to meet people. When I came to Belmont at first, I literally just started going out to shows that I wanted to see and just started to meet people and shake hands. And before you know it, I was meeting, pretty much all the big session players here in Nashville. And I'm really fortunate, but I put myself out there.
Yeah, I think that's hugely important for people to understand is that, I've heard a ton about how many connections there are just everywhere in Nashville. Like how many musicians are just all around you. But at the same time, it's not like these things are just going to come to you. Like these connections just going to find their way to you. It's like you still need to put yourself out there. You still need to give yourself that effort to make these connections work and actually like show up to those events, like you were saying. So I think that's hugely important. What's your experience been like in Nashville so far with playing live? Have you played live shows so far? Is that something for the future? What's it like for you?
Well, now that the vaccine's rolling out and all that stuff, it seems like Nashville is definitely getting a lot more lax about COVID restrictions, which like that's just like a crazy thing that happened in general, that I don't think any of us ever expected to happen. So unfortunately, like I mean, we obviously had no gigs after that, and what sucks is we actually we played and Belmont has this showcase series that they do, and they're big production. I mean, they put thousands of dollars into those, and it's a really great opportunity for students to really showcase what they have. And you have to try out, you have to make it through like 3 rounds to do it or something like that. And you audition in front of all these music business people, and it's very nerve wracking, but we were fortunate enough to make it in. And then we played in the country showcase, and we actually won the whole thing, which means that we were supposed to go on to what's called the best of the best showcase. And right after that, we were getting hit up by, music business people left and right. Cause it definitely puts you in the spotlight, with a lot of those record labels and publishing companies and all kinds of people like that, which is a great opportunity. But we definitely took a huge blow whenever COVID hit, because it literally happened about 2 weeks after that. And we were talking about booking live shows and really starting to get after it. But, the world happened, and we weren't able to play shows for a long time. But thankfully, as of like mid-February, we started playing at Third and Lindsley here in Nashville. We played 3 shows there, and then we played at the Station Inn, and now we're actually playing on Broadway pretty regularly. And I enjoy Broadway. I mean, it pays the bills. It's not. I really enjoy playing listening rooms, because I think as a songwriter, you want your songs to actually be heard and listened to, and appreciated. However, like, yeah, we've been really busy with live shows, and I foresee those just becoming busier and busier and busier, and hopefully bigger as well. One show leads to another, and you always want to do a good job because you never know who's going to be in the crowd, especially here in Nashville, So thankfully, yeah, we've been really fortunate to finally be able to start playing again. And yeah, we're just really stoked to be out there again.
Yeah, that's awesome. It sounds, it's super nice that now the 2021 is starting to open back up compared to last year. And I'm sure every musician there in Nashville is just so excited to have that happen. What's been your experience with live shows? I mean, have you always been comfortable playing live, or has that had to be something you've had to grow into over time? What's your personal feelings about playing live been?
Well, I've been performing since I was a little kid, but I've always had stage fright. I would say my friends would disagree, but I think I'm an introvert. I think that I don't really like crowds very much. I don't like to be in crowds. I like to be on stage, where there is a crowd. I know that sounds so weird, but I don't like to be in the crowd. I just don't like it unless it's a show that's like really good and worth it and stuff. I don't know. I just don't like to be surrounded by that many people. It's kind of stressful. However, I just eat up being on stage so much. And I think that that's definitely something that's taken time to cultivate, and to get better at. I mean, I still get nervous. I mean, even people like Adele, talk about being on stage and just being so nervous. They feel like they're going to throw up. And I felt that way a million times, but you just have to get out there. And after like 5 songs, you settle into it, and it's like, all right, we're here. It's kind of like running. Like you just kind of get in the swing of it. And after like the 5th mile, it's just like every mile feels the same after that, essentially. It's just that initial shock. It's adrenaline, it's nerves, it's excitement, it's all of those things. However, occasionally, like, I do believe in really spiritually empowering moments where you just feel like you're exactly where you need to be, and you don't even feel excited. You just feel content and like at peace with everything. And those are like the best shows. However, like, those nerves and jitters and everything, I mean, that happens all the time to me. So it just really depends on the show, the audience, who's in the audience. Yeah, but I mean, yeah, it's definitely something that I think, if you get out of practice, you lose for sure. Like when I started playing live again, recently, I had to like relearn how to use a microphone basically. Like, wow, how far do I need to be sitting back from this microphone so that I don't, destroy the sound system or something like that. So it's just like doing it in repetition and just getting in the swing of things. And just like not being afraid to be yourself and try something new, really.
Yeah, yeah. There's a quote I've heard once. Forgot where I heard it. It's on YouTube somewhere, but it says experience brings confidence, and I think that's something that a lot of artists struggle with. Is at the beginning they get a lot of stage fright. I mean, it continues on, of course, but especially in the beginning. But the more they play, the more confident they get, and the better their shows become, just because they do it and they take that leap of faith at first and just put themselves out there. So that's awesome. You're growing with it. And, it's a good point that coming back to after COVID, it's not always so easy, but it's just one step after the next, you're gonna get there. So that's awesome. So tell us about your band, the Night Owls. How did you guys meet, and what's your goal with the band? What's your vision?
Well, it's really funny how the band actually started. At that point in time, I was playing fiddle in a lot of bands around town, a lot of country bands, and I felt really, really lost. Generally speaking, I would say I knew that I was in the right place. I wasn't headed in the right direction musically, and I was meeting all these cool people and great musicians, but I just didn't feel like I was in the right place. So whenever I started songwriting, I really, really feel like I found myself, found my voice, found who I'm supposed to be. And that's when I decided, like, hey, like maybe I could do this for a career. So a random opportunity opened up at our dorm, of all places, and they had a dorm showcase. And at Belmont, I mean, basically everybody, including nursing majors and math majors, are musicians. It's just that school where everybody's a musician in some capacity. So we had a few people get out there and just play original songs, and one cover, they had to play a cover. So it was just kind of a showcase. But I had these guys living on my floor. My bass player now, Tom, he lived about two doors down from me. And, I heard, like, I'd never even heard him play. He was a really quiet guy, and he was from Wisconsin. That's all that I really knew about him. And, I got a tip from a buddy who's like, man, Tom can play. Like, he's a really, really good upright bass player and electric player. And I was like, well, it's kind of rare that, people play upright bass and are interested in like playing jazz and swing and like country and all Americana, whatever. So, we just went and jammed basically. And then I was like, wow, like Tom's a great bass player. So that's really kind of like the first guy that I realized, like, hey, like I want to play with him. But the showcase was coming up, so I had to find a drummer. And I had to find maybe some kind of auxiliary instrument. So my buddy Shane played saxophone, and another guy played drums with us. And we played the showcase, and people seemed to really, really like it. And I was like, hey, like this was kind of fun. Why don't we do something else? So we all went home for the summer, and I just started songwriting. I was popping out songs left and right, which was, had never happened to me before. So I was just really, really grinding at that and just coming up with ideas like, man, like, what are we going to play? What are we going to look like? What's our name going to be? And, I never came up with it until we all came together, and we came up with Cole Ritter and the Night Owls. And I feel like it was appropriate because all of us are night owls genuinely. And also just like, I don't know. I just think that like the owl in general has always had some kind of like weird, like spiritual significance in my life, where like owls seem to like follow my family everywhere we go. Like there's always like an owl outside of our house. I don't know why. It's always been that way. And so it just kind of felt like an appropriate name, and it kind of rolled off the tongue nicely. So we kept it. And then, we were looking for like a rhythm guitar player, and there was a kid named Christian Starrett, and Christian is from the town of Piqua, Ohio. Now my family, my dad's side of the family are actually from Piqua originally. So that was kind of a trip, being like, wow, this kid's coming down to Belmont. He's from Piqua. So we instantly started connecting over blues music, stuff like that. Just like we both we're both really big Stevie Ray Vaughan fans and really big Jimi Hendrix fans. And so we just hit it off talking about that. And then, there was a spot that opened up for an acoustic player initially. So I brought Christian on, and at that point in time, we had a different drummer than we have now, but it was me, bass, acoustic guitar, and drums, and it was just going to be a 4-piece. That was it. And then a little bit down the road, you know, the idea of the showcase kind of came along, and we had played a few shows at this point and had started talking about recording music. But there was just like a missing element in the band for sure. Um, well, I took a class called Quantitative Literacy and Reasoning. I did not learn anything in that class. I think it was a math class. I couldn't tell you. The teacher told us we didn't have to show up except to take tests. So that's what I did. However, fortunately, the most important thing about that class is I met a guy by the name of Alex Barsick, who was a year older than me, but had just started playing pedal steel guitar. And I thought that was awesome because I love pedal steel. And I didn't know anybody our age who was even interested in playing pedal steel. You know, everybody wants to play like John Mayer on guitar, and that's great. But like to meet, you know, a young guy who's like, yeah, I want to play steel guitar. That was really, 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 really kind of off the wall. And, you know, Alex is just such a pro. I could tell from the beginning, like he's also a great guitar player. He's a guitar major, but I knew right off the bat, like this guy's the real deal and he's going to be playing with people. And so I thought of him, you know, 6 months later or whatever. And yeah, ever since then we've been playing, and now we have a different drummer. Occasionally we'll have a fiddle player come in and sit in with us, but yeah, the band's been real consistent lately, and I love those guys. They're great.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's good to hear the story and like how y'all came together. Sounds like a great origin story. What tell us about your new music you're recording? What can we expect of the music? What does it sound like? And what do you hope the music accomplishes of this new release you're working on right now?
Well, it's a 5-song EP, and it's going to be called, overall, it's going to be called Between the Hours of Dusk and Dawn. I find oftentimes that those are the hours that just like the craziest stuff always happens. Um, Romantically speaking, you know, spiritually, you know, there's all the lore about like the witching hour and all that crazy stuff. But I don't know, like nighttime is just, it's kind of a magical, crazy time. But you know, the title track is called Hard Times, and that'll be the first one that's going to come out. But yeah, that song is really, really, really gritty, really rock and roll. Has like dobro on it and stuff like that, which Alex also played. And then the rest of the other tracks, they definitely fit in really, really well with that. But there's a lot of influences from Ray Price, Marty Robbins, but also, I mean, even newer like rock artists and stuff like that. So we've been kind of, I feel like pushed to be a country band. And although I would definitely say that we do have a lot of country influences, I'd say that rock and roll and the blues are just as big of a part of that as well, and folk music. So I would say that we're definitely an Americana band, but I can't honestly give you like an example to like compare it to. I think that it's genuinely, we've stumbled across something that's genuinely unique. And I'm really, really proud of that. And, you know, we initially formed and started playing like the roots music, basically. We started playing rockabilly, country, blues, whatever. And we love that stuff. But once we started finding our own sound and added steel and stuff like that, it just kind of took a turn that I don't think any of us were expecting. We started to find this sound that's just completely different than anything else that I've really heard before. And part of that is due to someone who is equally important to our organization as our band members, and that's our sound engineer. His name is James Crowland, and he's from Maryland, actually, right outside of DC. And he's a Belmont student as well. And man, he's just such a talent. And his production really, really, really influences the way that this album sounds. He basically custom made all of the reverbs for the album, and the distortions, and like basically anything we used sonically on the album. Like he I say hand, he went in on his computer and like spent time making each one of those things. And we were originally going to record it, you know, possibly on tape and stuff like that. But it's just like, man, there's so many layers to this album. Like I literally on some tracks, I probably put like just by myself between vocals, guitar, strings, other guitar parts, mandolin, stuff like that. I probably put close to 35 tracks by myself on one song. So tape was definitely not going to work for that. But yeah, and I think that's a really big part of the sound too, is the string work that I put on the album as well. I don't really think anybody's using a lot of orchestra stuff anymore on albums, and you know, it's just me. Unfortunately, I couldn't hire a 50-piece orchestra, but I could make all the parts myself. So I played violin, and I have a 5-string violin, so it's in the range of a cello or excuse me, not cello, viola as well. So I did both of those parts on my fiddle, and then I even made a couple of cello appearances. And I am by no means a cello player, but whatever fits the track and stuff like that. So I think that it's really, really hopefully going to like change the game a little bit. I'm really proud of it, and we expect it to be out in the full thing in the next 2 months, probably.
Yeah, it's so exciting. It sounds like you guys have a really special identity going on for it, of something that, could change the game. So I'm excited to hear it. I'm excited to hear, where it goes, and, who listens to it and all of that. What are your long-term goals for your music? What do you hope to accomplish through your life?
Well, I'd say the legitimate long-term goals. Well, I guess let me say a short-term goal first. One of the short-term goals of this album is that I just hope that it reaches people, and I hope that it's refreshing to people, where it's got kind of this nostalgic filter on it, but it's completely new and also feels fresh. Something like so nostalgic but so fresh. Through that, I really hope to start touring soon. Maybe getting on like an opening slot for a band or something like that. So I just really, really hope to move throughout our career, and just throughout our career, no matter what happens, stay true to ourselves and make music that we're proud of. It's one thing to like, write a song that's really, really, really poppy and get 1 million listens. That's great for some people, but it's not enough for me. I always want more, but that more just looks like being authentic throughout my life, no matter what I'm doing, and being true to myself, because, I don't even feel like it's really art unless it is authentic. You know what I mean? So I really, really, really want to just be as authentic and true to myself as I can possibly be throughout my life. Eventually, I would love, love, love to be a farmer. Actually, I would love to have a little farm and have goats and chickens and whatever else happens, and just be like a homesteader and just do my own thing and go play shows whenever I want to. That's really the goal, is just to like have enough money to put back so that I can, have the life that I want to have. I don't need $1 million. I don't need that. I just want to be able to relax and enjoy my life and share great experiences with people and give people as much as I possibly can.
That's really cool, and that's really commendable. I mean, sounds like a great goal you got going on, and I think you're gonna hit it someday. I mean, sounds like you've made a lot of experience so far, and you're just gonna keep going further. So I'm excited for it. What advice would you give to artists who might just be starting out now, or just getting their ball rolling for their careers?
Well, the biggest piece of advice I have is just to go do it. Quit thinking about it, and just do it. Go introduce yourself to people. Put yourself out there. Like as soon as you get into a new scene or whatever, even if it's your home scene, just put yourself out there and don't be afraid. Like if you're good, you don't have to like, it's good to be humble. Humility is really important, because, a lot of times people really, really get a big head once they start playing shows and stuff like that. But if you keep a good head, but also recognize where you actually are, I know that I'm good at music. That's about all that I'm good at. I'm okay with admitting like where my faults are. And I would say that to other people, like recognize where your strengths and your weaknesses really are, and look at those areas in your life where you need to maybe pick up the ball a little bit and work really hard at that. But just like keep going, no matter what, no matter whenever life puts you down or whatever. Just keep getting back up and keep making great music and be true to yourself. That's really like the only advice that I have. Other than that, just like, yeah, I mean, just press on. That's it. Just press on and put yourself out there.